The kitchen light buzzed like an angry wasp as I sat across from my wife of 10 years, watching her push salad around her plate like she was solving a puzzle. Laura had that look again, the one that meant she'd been thinking too much during her evening workout sessions that never seemed to involve actual sweating. "We need to talk," she said, setting down her fork with the precision of a surgeon. I nearly choked on my beer. In 10 years of marriage, those 4 words had never led anywhere good. "About what? Did I forget to put the toilet seat down again? Because I'm pretty sure I've been perfect on that front for at least 3 days. She didn't laugh. Laura used to laugh at my jokes, back when she still pretended to find me charming instead of just tolerable. Now she looked at me like I was a stain on her perfectly curated life. "I regret being with you," she said, her voice flat as roadkill. My heart stopped, just completely stopped, like someone had yanked the power cord on my entire existence. "What?" "I regret marrying you. I regret these 10 years. She sat there, perfectly composed, like she'd just announced the weather forecast. "I regret everything about us." I stared at her, waiting for the punchline, the smile, the "just kidding, honey." But Laura's face remained stone-cold serious, the same face she wore during budget meetings and performance reviews, professional, detached, brutal. "Why are you saying this?" I managed, my voice sounding like it belonged to someone else. "Because it's true." She shrugged, actually shrugged, like she'd just admitted to preferring vanilla over chocolate. "I've been thinking about it for months, maybe years. I'm not happy. I haven't been happy for a long time." The kitchen suddenly felt too small, too bright, too everything. The refrigerator hummed. The clock ticked. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. Normal sounds for a normal Friday evening, except nothing about this was normal. "What do you want?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. You don't drop a bomb like that unless you've already planned the evacuation route. "I want out. I want a divorce." There it was, clean, simple, devastating, like a precision strike to the heart. Laura stood up, smoothed down her yoga pants, the ones she'd bought for the gym membership she'd been using 3 times a week for the past 6 months, and walked toward the bedroom without another word. No explanation, no apology, no "it's not you, it's me" bullshit, just cold, hard truth delivered with surgical precision. I sat there for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes, staring at the spot where she'd been sitting. 10 years, a decade of shared meals, shared jokes, shared dreams, all of it dismissed with the casual indifference of someone returning a defective appliance. Finally, I stood up on unsteady legs and walked to the sink. My hands shook as I twisted off my wedding ring, the simple gold band I'd worn for so long it had left a permanent indent in my finger. The metal felt heavier than it should have, weighted down with the gravity of what had just happened. I placed the ring on the kitchen table, right where Laura's plate had been, and pulled out my phone. The camera app opened with a soft click. I positioned the ring in the center of the frame, the overhead light catching the gold and making it gleam like a tiny, broken promise. Click. The photo was perfect in its simplicity. Just a wedding ring, alone on a wooden table, telling a story that needed no words. But I added some anyway. "Single again," I typed, then hit post. The social media notification sound seemed too cheerful for the moment, like a party favor at a funeral. I set the phone down and stared at the ring, wondering if I should put it back on or throw it in the garbage disposal. 5 minutes later, my phone buzzed. The notification showed a message from Ashley Chen, the pretty brunette from accounting who always smiled when she passed my desk and actually listened when I made small talk by the coffee machine. I'd noticed her, of course. Any man with a pulse would notice Ashley. But I'd been married. Happily married, I'd thought. I opened the message. "Saw your post. Are you okay?" I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. Was I okay? That was like asking if the Titanic was having a minor leak. Honestly, no, I typed back. Her response came almost immediately. If you want to talk, I'm here. I know this might be weird timing, but I've had feelings for you for a while. I never said anything because you were married, but if you ever want to grab coffee. I read the message 3 times, making sure I wasn't hallucinating from emotional trauma. Ashley Chen, who looked like she'd stepped out of a magazine and had a laugh that could cure depression, had feelings for me. For me. The guy whose wife had just announced she regretted their entire relationship with all the emotion of someone ordering takeout. I'd like that, I typed, my fingers moving faster than my brain could process the implications. Really? Yes, I need the distraction. Tomorrow? There's a nice cafe on 5th Street. Around 10? Sure. I set the phone down and looked at the wedding ring again. For the first time since Laura had dropped her bomb, I smiled. Not a big smile, not a happy smile, but something that felt like the beginning of possibility. From the bedroom came the sound of drawers opening and closing, hangers sliding across the closet rod. Laura was packing, apparently planning to make her exit as swift and efficient as her announcement. I picked up the wedding ring and walked to the junk drawer, the one every married couple has that's filled with batteries, rubber bands, and broken dreams. I dropped the ring inside, where it landed with a soft clink among the forgotten debris of our life together. Tomorrow I would have coffee with Ashley. Tonight, I would figure out what single again actually meant. Saturday morning arrived with the kind of cruel sunshine that made everything look deceptively cheerful. I'd spent the night on the couch, listening to Laura move around upstairs like a ghost preparing for exorcism. She'd left early, before 7, judging by the sound of her car pulling out of the driveway with unnecessary aggression. The cafe Ashley had chosen was one of those deliberately rustic places where everything looked like it had been distressed by hand and the coffee cost more than my first car payment. She was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with 2 steaming mugs and a smile that made my chest feel less tight for the first time in 12 hours. "You look terrible," she said as I sat down. "Thanks. That's exactly what every recently separated man wants to hear." I meant it in the best possible way, like authentically terrible, not fake terrible. She pushed one of the mugs toward me. "I got you a double shot. Figured you might need it." The coffee was perfect, strong enough to wake the dead and bitter enough to match my mood. Ashley watched me drink, her dark eyes kind but not pitying. There's a difference, and I appreciated that she knew it. "So," she said, wrapping her hands around her own mug. 10 years, huh? 10 years, 3 months, and 16 days. Not that I was counting. And she just said she regretted all of it? I nodded, taking another sip of coffee that tasted like liquid salvation. Like she was returning a sweater that didn't fit. "I regret being with you." Just like that. No build-up, no explanation, no nothing. Ashley shook her head. "That's brutal. Even for Laura." "You know Laura?" "Office parties. Company picnics. She always seemed—" Ashley paused, choosing her words carefully. "Intense. Very put together. Very aware of how things looked." That was a diplomatic way of saying Laura was a control freak who treated our marriage like a performance art piece, but I appreciated Ashley's tact. "She's been different lately," I said. "Distant. Always at the gym or working late or hanging out with her friend Jess. I thought maybe she was just stressed about work." "The marketing job?" "Yeah. She's been climbing the corporate ladder like it's on fire. Always networking, always strategizing, always optimizing." I realized I was using Laura's buzzwords and felt a little sick. I should have seen it coming. Ashley leaned forward, her elbows on the table. "Nick, can I ask you something?" "Shoot." "Are you sad, or are you relieved?" The question hit me like a slap, not because it was rude, but because it was exactly the right question, the one I'd been afraid to ask myself. "Both," I said after a long pause. Is that terrible? It's honest. We talked for 2 hours. About everything and nothing. About work and dreams, and the weird way life has of pulling the rug out from under you just when you think you've got your footing. Ashley was easy to talk to, the kind of person who actually listened instead of just waiting for her turn to speak. When we finally left the cafe, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Hope. Not for reconciliation with Laura. That ship had sailed, crashed into an iceberg, and sunk to the bottom of the ocean. But hope that maybe, just maybe, the end of one thing could be the beginning of something better. Same time next week? Ashley asked as we stood on the sidewalk. I'd like that. She smiled and touched my arm briefly before walking away. I watched her go, admiring the confident way she moved through the world, like she knew exactly where she belonged. I drove home to find Laura's car in the driveway and several boxes stacked on the front porch. She was making good on her promise to get out, apparently. Part of me wanted to help her pack, to make this easier for both of us. The other part wanted to change the locks and make her explain to the neighbors why she was loading her life into a U-Haul on a Saturday afternoon. I chose the mature route and went inside to make a sandwich. Laura was in the kitchen, packing dishes into a box with the same methodical precision she brought to everything else. She looked up when I entered, her expression unreadable. I'm taking the good china, she said. Okay. And the coffee maker. Sure. And I think I should keep the car. I stopped spreading mustard on my bread and looked at her. Which car? The Honda. It's more reliable. The Honda was also newer, more expensive, and the one I drove to work every day, but I was too emotionally exhausted to fight about it. Fine, I'll take the truck. She nodded and went back to packing, apparently satisfied with her victory. We worked around each other in silence for a while, like dancers who'd forgotten the choreography but were still trying to avoid stepping on each other's feet. I'm staying at Jess's tonight, Laura said eventually. Okay. And probably for the next week or so, until I find my own place. Okay. She stopped packing and looked at me with something that might have been frustration. You're not going to fight for this, are you? The question caught me off guard. Fight for what? For us. For our marriage. You're just going to let me walk away. I set down my sandwich and really looked at her. Laura was beautiful. I'd never denied that. Even now, with her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail and no makeup, she was stunning. But there was something cold in her eyes, something calculating that I'd been ignoring for months. You said you regret being with me, I said quietly. You said you regret our entire marriage. What exactly am I supposed to fight for? She opened her mouth, then closed it again. For the first time since this whole nightmare began, Laura looked uncertain. I don't know, she said finally. I just thought... I don't know. You thought I'd beg? You thought I'd promise to change, to be whatever you wanted me to be? I shook my head. I'm not going to fight for someone who doesn't want to be here. I've got more self-respect than that. Something flickered across her face. Surprise, maybe, or disappointment. Like she'd expected me to crumble, to make this about her instead of about us. Fine, she said, her voice sharp again. That makes this easier. She finished packing the box, sealed it with tape, and carried it outside. I heard her loading it into the Honda, then coming back for another. By evening, half our life together was stacked in the back of my car, her car, ready to be transported to whatever new life she was building. I was in my workshop in the basement pretending to organize tools when she came to say goodbye. The workshop was my sanctuary, the one place in the house that was completely mine. Laura rarely came down here, said it smelled like sawdust and old metal. I'm leaving now, she said from the bottom of the stairs. Drive safe. Nick. She hesitated, like there was something else she wanted to say. This doesn't have to be ugly. I looked up from the wrench I was pretending to clean. It already is ugly, Laura. You made sure of that. She flinched, just slightly, but recovered quickly. I'll have my lawyer call yours. I don't have a lawyer. You should get one. After she left, the house felt different. Not empty exactly, but lighter. Like a weight I hadn't realized I was carrying had suddenly been lifted. I went upstairs and looked around at the spaces where her things used to be. The bookshelf with gaps like missing teeth, the bathroom counter with only my toothbrush and shaving cream, the closet with my clothes hanging alone on one side. I should have felt sad. I should have felt devastated. Instead, I felt curious about what came next. My phone buzzed with a text from Ashley. How was the rest of your day? Interesting, I typed back. Laura moved out. That was fast. She's efficient. Are you okay? I thought about it for a moment. Was I okay? My wife had left me, taken half our stuff, and was probably already planning her new life without me. By any reasonable measure, I should be a mess. Yeah, I typed. I think I am. Good. You deserve better. I stared at that message for a long time. You deserve better. When was the last time someone had said that to me? When was the last time I'd believed it? Monday morning hit like a cold shower. The office felt different somehow, like everyone could sense the seismic shift in my personal life just by looking at me. Maybe it was the fact that I'd actually ironed my shirt for the first time in months, or maybe it was because I was smiling at people instead of just nodding politely. Ashley stopped by my desk around 10 with a stack of reports and a conspiratorial grin. You look better, she said, setting the papers down. Feel better too. Weird, right? Not weird at all. Sometimes the anticipation of disaster is worse than the actual disaster. She was right. I'd been dreading this conversation with Laura for months without even realizing it. Now that it was over, I felt like I could breathe again. Listen, Ashley said, glancing around to make sure no one was listening. I know this might be moving fast, but would you like to have dinner sometime? Actual dinner, not just coffee. I'd love that. Thursday? There's this little Italian place on Maple Street that makes amazing pasta. It's a date. The words slipped out before I could stop them, and we both froze. I mean, it's a date, she said, smiling. I like the sound of that. After she walked away, I found myself grinning like an idiot at my computer screen. For the first time in years, I had something to look forward to that didn't involve home improvement projects or Laura's work functions. The good mood lasted until I got home and found Laura's car in the driveway again. She was in the living room with her friend Jess, both of them surrounded by boxes and looking like they were planning a military operation. Jess was one of those aggressively cheerful people who spoke in exclamation points and treated other people's drama like entertainment. Nick, Jess chirped when I walked in. How are you holding up? Just fine, thanks. Laura told me what happened. I'm so sorry, but you know what they say. When one door closes, another one opens. I looked at Laura, who was avoiding eye contact and packing books like her life depended on it. More stuff to move? Just finishing up, Laura said without looking at me. I'll be out of your hair soon. Take your time. Jess looked back and forth between us like she was watching a tennis match. You two are being so mature about this. Most divorced couples I know want to kill each other. We're not divorced yet, I pointed out. Well, separated couples then. You know what I mean. Jess laughed, the kind of forced laugh that meant she was enjoying this way too much. Laura was just telling me about her new workout routine. She's been so dedicated lately. Something in the way she said it made me look more closely at Laura. My wife, soon-to-be ex-wife, was definitely in better shape than she'd been 6 months ago. Toned arms, flat stomach, glowing skin, the kind of transformation that came from serious dedication to fitness or serious motivation to look good for someone. The thought hit me like a punch to the gut. I'd been so focused on the shock of Laura's announcement that I hadn't really considered the why behind it. People don't just wake up one day and decide they regret their entire marriage. Something, or someone, usually triggers that kind of revelation. New workout routine? I asked casually. Personal trainer, Jess said before Laura could answer. This amazing guy at the gym, Kevin something. Laura says he's really helped her find her motivation. Laura shot Jess a look that could have melted steel. Jess. What? It's not a secret. You've been raving about him for months. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. The late nights at the gym, the new clothes, the sudden interest in personal fitness, the way Laura had been distant and distracted for months, the careful way she'd been preparing for this conversation, making sure she had somewhere to go and someone to go to. Kevin, I said, testing the name on my tongue. Sounds like a great trainer. The best, Jess gushed, apparently oblivious to the tension in the room. Laura says he really knows how to push her limits. I bet he does. Laura stood up abruptly, a box in her arms. I think that's everything. Jess, can you help me load the car? They carried the boxes outside, Jess chattering the whole time about Laura's exciting new chapter and how everything happens for a reason. I watched from the window as they loaded up the Honda, noting the way Laura kept checking her phone and smiling at whatever she was reading. After they left, I sat in my empty living room and tried to process what I'd just learned. My wife hadn't just fallen out of love with me. She'd fallen in love with someone else. Someone named Kevin who knew how to push her limits and motivate her to new heights. The betrayal should have hurt more than it did. Instead, I felt something else. Curiosity. How long had this been going on? How serious was it? And why hadn't Laura just been honest about it instead of making me feel like our marriage had failed because of some vague incompatibility? I pulled out my phone and opened Facebook, searching for Laura's profile. She'd been posting a lot more lately, I realized. Gym selfies, motivational quotes, pictures of healthy meals, the kind of content that screamed, "Look how amazing my life is," to anyone who was paying attention. I scrolled through her recent posts, looking for clues. There, a photo from 3 weeks ago. Laura at the gym, sweaty and glowing, with her arm around a tall, muscular guy with perfect teeth and the kind of tan that came from spending serious time outdoors. The caption read, "Couldn't have reached my goals without this amazing trainer. Blessed, chakra fitness journey, chapister motivation." Kevin, I presumed. And judging by the way Laura was looking at him in the photo, their relationship had moved well beyond professional. I screenshotted the photo and stared at it for a long time. This was the man my wife had chosen over me. Younger, fitter, probably more exciting than a technical consultant who spent his weekends fixing things around the house. My phone buzzed with a text from Ashley. "How was your day?" I looked at Kevin's perfect smile on my screen, then at Ashley's message. 2 different paths, 2 different futures. "Educational?" I typed back. "I learned some interesting things about my wife's fitness routine." Oh no. Do I want to know? Probably not, but it explains a lot. "I'm sorry, Nick. That sucks." "Yeah, it does. But you know what? I'm starting to think I dodged a bullet." "How so?" I thought about how to explain it. If she was willing to lie to me for months, to build a whole secret relationship while pretending everything was fine, then she's not the person I thought I married anyway. That's a very mature way to look at it. I'm feeling surprisingly mature lately. Must be all this newfound freedom. Speaking of which, are you still free Thursday? I looked around my half-empty house, at the spaces where Laura's things used to be, at the photo of her with Kevin still glowing on my phone screen. "Absolutely," I typed. "I'm looking forward to it." And for the first time since this whole mess started, I really meant it. Thursday couldn't come fast enough. I'd spent the week in a strange kind of limbo, going through the motions of normal life while everything around me shifted and rearranged itself. Laura had been back twice more to collect things, each visit more awkward than the last. We'd barely spoken, just polite exchanges about logistics and scheduling. But I'd been watching, learning, paying attention to details I'd been blind to for months, like the way Laura checked her phone constantly, always angling the screen away from me. The way she'd started wearing perfume again, not the one I'd bought her for Christmas, but something new and expensive that left a trail when she walked past. The way she hummed under her breath, little snatches of songs I didn't recognize, like someone who had music in her head all the time. Someone who was happy. Happier than she'd been with me in years. The Italian restaurant Ashley had chosen was exactly the kind of place Laura would have criticized. Too small, too loud, too casual. But sitting across from Ashley in the warm, dim light, listening to her laugh at my stupid jokes and actually engage with what I was saying, I realized I didn't care what Laura would have thought. "So, tell me about this technical consulting thing," Ashley said, twirling pasta around her fork with expert precision. "What exactly do you do?" "I fix things that other people break. Usually computer systems, sometimes entire networks. Companies call me when their IT department has given up and started drinking." That sounds like it requires actual intelligence. Some. Mostly it requires patience and the ability to think like an idiot. She laughed, and the sound made something warm unfurl in my chest. When was the last time Laura had laughed at one of my jokes? Really laughed, not just the polite chuckle she'd perfected for social situations. "What about you?" I asked. "How did you end up in accounting? Childhood dream of balancing books?" "Actually, yes. I know it's weird, but I love numbers. They make sense. They don't lie or change their minds or decide they regret being added together." The comment hit a little close to home, but Ashley's smile took any sting out of it. "Unlike people," I said. "Unlike people." She reached across the table and touched my hand briefly. For what it's worth, I think Laura made a huge mistake. "You barely know me. I know enough. I know you're kind to the cleaning staff. I know you always hold the elevator for people. I know you brought soup to the office when I had the flu last winter, even though we'd barely talked before that." I'd forgotten about the soup. It had seemed like such a small thing at the time. "I notice things," Ashley continued. "And I notice that you're a good person who deserves better than someone who could throw away 10 years like it meant nothing." We talked until the restaurant started putting chairs up on tables around us. About work and family and dreams, and the weird way life never turns out like you expect. Ashley was smart and funny and kind, and sitting there with her felt like the most natural thing in the world. "I should probably get you home," I said as we walked to my truck. "Probably." She paused by the passenger door. "Nick, can I ask you something?" "Sure. Are you ready for this? Dating, I mean. Because I don't want to be a rebound or a distraction or whatever. I like you too much for that." The honesty in her voice made my chest tight. Laura had never been that direct about her feelings, even when we were dating. Everything with her was calculated, strategic, designed to achieve maximum effect with minimum vulnerability. "I think I've been ready for longer than I realized," I said. "I just didn't know it until now." She smiled and stood on her toes to kiss me. It was soft and sweet and tasted like wine and possibility. "Good," she whispered against my lips, "because I've been waiting a long time for this." I drove home with Ashley's perfume lingering in the truck and her phone number programmed into my contacts under Beautiful Ashley instead of just Ashley Chen. It felt like a small act of rebellion against the careful, compartmentalized way I'd been living my life. The house was dark when I pulled into the driveway, which should have been normal except for the fact that Laura's car was parked on the street. Not in the driveway where she usually left it, but on the street, half hidden behind the neighbor's oak tree. I sat in the truck for a moment, trying to figure out why that felt wrong. Then it hit me. Laura never parked on the street. She was paranoid about door dings and tree sap and all the other hazards that came with street parking. The only reason she'd park there was if she didn't want someone to know she was here. I got out of the truck quietly and walked around to the back of the house. The kitchen light was on, and through the window, I could see Laura sitting at the table with her laptop open, talking on her phone. She was animated, gesturing with her free hand, smiling in a way I hadn't seen in months. I know, she was saying as I got close enough to hear. It's been crazy, but it's almost over. He's being surprisingly reasonable about everything. A pause while the person on the other end responded. No, he doesn't suspect anything. I think he's actually relieved. You should have seen him. He barely fought for us at all. She laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. Honestly, it's kind of pathetic. Another pause. Of course I'm sure. Kevin, baby, I've been planning this for months. The lawyer says we can file for irreconcilable differences, split everything 50-50, and be done in 6 months. Then we can finally stop sneaking around. Kevin. So I'd been right about the trainer. I miss you too, Laura continued, her voice dropping to the husky tone she used to use with me. But it's almost over. Soon, we won't have to hide anymore. I backed away from the window, my heart pounding. Not from hurt, that was the weird part. From anger. Pure, clean anger at the lies, the manipulation, the way she'd made me feel like our marriage had failed because of some vague incompatibility, when really she'd been planning her exit strategy for months. I walked back to the truck and sat there for a few minutes, processing what I'd heard. Laura hadn't fallen out of love with me and then met Kevin. She'd been with Kevin for months, maybe longer, and had been planning her escape while pretending everything was fine. The "I regret being with you" speech hadn't been spontaneous emotional honesty. It had been a calculated move designed to make me feel guilty enough to give her whatever she wanted in the divorce. My phone buzzed with a text from Ashley. Thank you for tonight. I had an amazing time. I looked at the message, then at the house where my wife was planning her new life with her trainer boyfriend, then back at the message. Me too, I typed back. Want to do it again tomorrow? That fast? Life's too short to wait around. I like that attitude. Yes. I started the truck and drove around the block a few times, giving Laura time to finish her call and leave. When I finally went inside, the house smelled like her new perfume and lies, but for the first time since this whole mess started, I wasn't the one being played. I was the one with all the cards. The next few weeks fell into a strange rhythm. Laura would come by to collect more of her things, always when she thought I wouldn't be home. I'd started varying my schedule, coming back at random times just to see what she was up to. Call it curiosity. Call it reconnaissance. Call it the beginning of something that felt suspiciously like a plan. Meanwhile, Ashley and I were dating. Actually dating, not just grabbing coffee and talking about my failed marriage. She came to my house for dinner and didn't criticize the mismatched dishes or the way I'd organized the spice rack. She laughed at my stories and told me about her family and made me remember what it felt like to be genuinely interested in another person's thoughts. You seem different, she said one evening as we sat on my back porch, sharing a bottle of wine and watching the sunset. Lighter. Divorce agrees with me, apparently. It's more than that. You seem, I don't know, more like yourself. She was right, though I couldn't have explained why. Maybe it was the relief of not having to pretend everything was fine when it clearly wasn't. Maybe it was the freedom to make decisions without calculating how Laura would react. Or maybe it was just the simple pleasure of being with someone who actually wanted to be there. Laura called me today, I said, surprising myself with the admission. Ashley's hand tightened slightly on her wine glass. Oh? She wants to meet. Says we need to discuss the details of the divorce. Are you going to? Probably. Might as well get it over with. What I didn't tell Ashley was that I'd been doing some research of my own. Nothing illegal, nothing invasive, just paying attention to the digital breadcrumbs Laura had been leaving all over social media. Her check-ins at restaurants I'd never heard of, photos with friends I didn't recognize, and always, Lurking in the background of her fitness posts, Kevin the trainer with his perfect smile and his hands that lingered a little too long on her shoulders. The meeting with Laura was set for Saturday afternoon at a coffee shop downtown. Neutral territory, she'd said, like we were negotiating a hostage situation instead of ending a marriage. I arrived early and claimed a table by the window where I could watch her approach. She looked good. Better than good, actually. The kind of good that came from new clothes and professional highlights, and the confidence that came from having a backup plan. She spotted me through the window and waved, all smiles and casual friendliness. "Nick," she said as she sat down, like we were old friends meeting for a pleasant chat. "You look well." "Thanks. So do you." She ordered some complicated drink with multiple adjectives while I stuck with black coffee. We made small talk about work and the weather and mutual friends, dancing around the real reason we were there like it was a live grenade. "So," Laura said finally, pulling a folder from her purse, "I've been thinking about how to divide everything." I tried to be fair. I looked through the papers she handed me. Fair was apparently a relative term. Laura had allocated herself the newer car, the better furniture, and about 60% of our shared assets. In return, I got the truck, the workshop tools, and the privilege of keeping the house, along with the mortgage payments. "This seems reasonable," I said, which was true from a certain perspective. It was reasonable if you were the one getting the better end of the deal. "Really? I was worried you might think I was being greedy." "Not at all. I'm sure you've thought this through very carefully." Something flickered across her face at that, but she recovered quickly. "I just want this to be as painless as possible for both of us." "Of course. How's the personal training going, by the way?" The question was casual, thrown out like an afterthought, but Laura went very still. "Fine. Good. Really good, actually. Jess mentioned you're working with someone named Kevin. Says he's amazing." "He is. Very professional." "I'm sure. It must be nice to have someone so dedicated to helping you reach your goals." Laura was definitely uncomfortable now, though she was trying to hide it. "Nick, is there something you want to ask me?" "Just making conversation. I'm happy you found something that motivates you." We finished the meeting with handshakes and promises to have our lawyers review everything. Laura seemed relieved to escape, practically jogging to her car like she was afraid I might follow her. I didn't follow her. I didn't need to. I already knew where she was going. Instead, I drove to Ashley's apartment, where she was waiting with takeout Thai food and a bottle of wine. "How did it go?" she asked, as I kissed her hello. About like I expected. Laura's very thorough when it comes to getting what she wants. "Are you okay with the division of assets?" "I'm okay with all of it. The house, the truck, the tools, that's all stuff I actually care about. She can have the rest." Ashley studied my face. "You're up to something." "What makes you say that?" "You have that look, like you know something she doesn't." I pulled Ashley close and kissed her properly, tasting wine and possibility and the promise of a future that didn't involve careful negotiations and strategic conversations. "Maybe I do," I said against her lips. "But tonight, I don't want to think about Laura or Kevin or any of it. Tonight, I just want to be here with you." "Kevin?" "The trainer. Her trainer." Ashley's eyes widened slightly. "Oh, that kind of trainer. That kind of trainer. Well," she said, wrapping her arms around my neck, "their loss is definitely my gain." We spent the evening on her couch, eating pad thai and watching old movies and not talking about my soon-to-be ex-wife or her fitness goals. It was perfect in its simplicity, just two people enjoying each other's company without hidden agendas or secret phone calls or careful calculations about who was getting what. Later, as Ashley fell asleep curled against my side, I stared at the ceiling and thought about choices. Laura had made hers months ago, maybe longer. She'd chosen deception over honesty, Strategy over vulnerability, Kevin over me. Now it was my turn to choose. The plan came together slowly, like pieces of a puzzle I hadn't realized I was solving. It started with a conversation with my neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, who had the kind of strategic view of the neighborhood that would make a military intelligence officer jealous. "That wife of yours has been keeping interesting hours," she mentioned one morning as I was getting my mail. "Oh?" "Leaving at odd times, coming back even odder. Yesterday she was here for maybe 20 minutes, then left again with a suitcase. Today she's back with some man I've never seen before." I looked toward my house where Laura's Honda was indeed parked in the driveway next to a silver BMW I didn't recognize. "Tall fellow," Mrs. Patterson continued, clearly enjoying her role as neighborhood intelligence officer. "Very fit, wearing one of those tight athletic shirts. Looks like he spends a lot of time at the gym." Kevin apparently was helping Laura pack. How thoughtful of him. "Thanks for letting me know," I said. "Oh, it's none of my business, of course, but I do like to keep an eye on things. You never know what people are up to these days." I spent the rest of the morning at Ashley's place, giving Laura and Kevin plenty of time to collect whatever they'd come for. When I finally went home around noon, they were gone, but the house felt different. Emptier, but also cleaner somehow, like a wound that had finally been properly drained. My phone rang as I was making lunch. Laura's name on the caller ID. "Nick? I hope it's okay that I brought someone to help me move the heavier stuff. I know we didn't discuss it, but..." "It's fine, Laura. Your boyfriend is welcome to help." Silence on the other end. Long, heavy silence. "My what?" "Kevin, right? The trainer? Mrs. Patterson mentioned he was very fit. Said he looked like he spent a lot of time at the gym." More silence. Then, "Nick, I don't know what you think you know, but..." "I don't think anything, Laura. I know you've been seeing someone. I know you've been planning this for months. I know the whole, 'I regret being with you' speech was just your way of making me feel guilty enough to give you whatever you wanted in the divorce. That's not... It's okay. Really. I'm not angry." "You're not?" "Nope. Actually, I'm grateful." "Grateful? You could have kept lying to me for years. You could have dragged this out, made both of us miserable while you figured out what you wanted. Instead, you were honest enough to end it cleanly. I respect that." The silence this time was different, confused rather than guilty. "Oh," Laura said finally. "So thank you. For being direct, for not making this uglier than it had to be, and for giving me the chance to find someone who actually wants to be with me. Someone who... Nick, are you seeing someone?" "I am. Her name is Ashley, and she's wonderful. We're very happy." "Ashley from accounting?" "That's the one. But we've only been separated for a month." The indignation in her voice was almost funny. "And how long have you been with Kevin?" Another silence. "That's different," she said finally. "How? It just is." "Well, anyway, I should let you go. I'm sure Kevin is waiting for you. Tell him I said thanks for helping with the heavy lifting." I hung up before she could respond and immediately called Ashley. "Want to go somewhere public tonight?" I asked when she answered. "Like where?" "That new restaurant downtown. The one with the big windows that face the street. I feel like being seen." Ashley laughed. "Are you trying to make your ex-wife jealous?" "I'm trying to live my life. If that makes her jealous, that's her problem." "I like this side of you. Very confident." "I'm feeling confident. Pick you up at 7. It's a date." The restaurant was perfect. Busy, well lit, full of people we both knew from work and around town. Ashley looked stunning in a red dress that made every man in the place take a second look, and I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Pride. Not in owning her or having her, but in being chosen by her, in being the person she wanted to spend her evening with. We were halfway through dinner when I spotted Laura's Honda driving slowly past the windows, once, then again 10 minutes later, then a third time. "Is that your ex-wife?" Ashley asked, following my gaze. Yep, and unless I'm mistaken, that's Kevin in the passenger seat. Are they circling? Looks like it. Ashley reached across the table and took my hand. Should we give them something to really look at? Before I could answer, she leaned over and kissed me. Not a quick peck, but a real kiss, the kind that made the other diners smile and look away politely. When she pulled back, I was grinning like an idiot. Feel better? She asked. Much. Laura's car didn't drive by again. We finished dinner and walked slowly to my truck, holding hands and taking our time. The night was warm and clear, and for the first time in months, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. Your place or mine? Ashley asked as we reached the truck. Yours. Mine still smells like lies and regret. She laughed. That's very poetic. I'm feeling poetic tonight. We drove to Ashley's apartment with the windows down and the radio up, singing along to songs we half remembered from college. It felt like being young again, like anything was possible. Later, as we lay in Ashley's bed, listening to the rain that had started while we weren't paying attention, she traced patterns on my chest with her fingertip. Can I ask you something? She said. Anything. Do you miss her? Laura, I mean. Do you miss being married? I thought about it seriously, trying to give her an honest answer. I miss the idea of being married, the partnership, the shared goals, the feeling that someone had my back, but I don't miss Laura, not the person she became anyway. What do you mean? I think somewhere along the way, she stopped seeing me as a partner and started seeing me as an obstacle to whatever life she really wanted. And maybe I did the same thing to her. Maybe we both just got comfortable being disappointed in each other. Ashley was quiet for a moment. That's sad. It is. But it's also freeing. Now I get to figure out what I actually want instead of trying to want what I thought I was supposed to want. And what do you want? I turned to look at her, this beautiful, smart, kind woman who had somehow seen something worth pursuing in a recently separated technical consultant with trust issues and a mortgage. This, I said simply. I want this. She smiled and kissed me softly. Good, because you've got it. Outside, the rain continued to fall, washing the world clean for whatever came next. And for the first time in longer than I could remember, I was excited to find out what that might be. My phone buzzed with a text message, Laura's name on the screen. We need to talk, it said. I showed the message to Ashley, who raised an eyebrow. What do you think she wants? Ashley asked. Probably to explain why her situation is different from mine, why she deserves happiness, but I don't, why Kevin is true love, but you're just a rebound. Are you going to respond? I looked at the message again, then deleted it. Nope. I'm done talking. From now on, all communication goes through lawyers. That's probably smart. It's definitely smart. I spent 10 years trying to figure out what Laura wanted from me. I'm not going to spend another minute on it. I turned off my phone and pulled Ashley closer. Tomorrow would bring lawyers and paperwork and the official end of my marriage. But tonight was ours, clean and simple and honest in a way I'd almost forgotten was possible.